Hey everybody, this is Chris.
And this is Julia, and this is episode number 41 of the Mixology Talk podcast. Now, theoretically, spring should be right around the corner. And don't look out your window, it may or may not look like it. But I thought with spring coming, maybe it would make sense for us to talk a little bit about some ideas for making great spring cocktails.
Yeah, spring has always been one of my favorite seasons for designing cocktails. You know, we're coming out of the winter, we're getting away from the heavy spirits and going a lot towards the lighter spirits. And the farmer's market is starting to show some fruit, and we're definitely starting to see a lot of flowers out everywhere. So definitely one of my favorite times to create cocktails.
So this week, we're talking about some ideas and inspiration for making floral cocktails for your home, your bar, maybe some parties you're throwing, Easter, Tuesdays.
I love Tuesday drinking.
I do love Tuesdays. You don't really need a reason to enjoy a floral cocktail.
No, you really don't.
So let's get into it.
Yeah, so the first ingredient that comes to my mind when I'm designing cocktails is typically floral liqueurs. Now, there's quite a selection of floral liqueurs out there, and the first one that kind of comes to my mind is the creme de violette.
Yeah, I think that is definitely one that comes to mind for a lot of people, thanks to the aviation, I would imagine.
Great cocktail.
A great cocktail. Another one that I think I have heard referred to as bartender's ketchup,
oh yeah,
at least in San Francisco, is Saint Germain.
Yeah, definitely. There was a point where you could not look at a cocktail menu and not see Saint Germain on there, and it was about 5 years ago,
yep.
Maybe 8 years ago or something.
We're definitely seeing that influence still on cocktail menus. I think the Saint Germain marketing team's pretty happy with that.
Yeah.
There's a lot out there, though. There are a lot of options. I think it makes a lot of sense, and a lot of them are really fantastic ingredients. I've actually seen a couple of rose liqueurs out there as well.
Yeah, they're a lot harder to find, but I remember, I think it was Germain Robin, the brandy producer up in Northern California, produces a really, really powerful rose liqueur. So that may be something you want to try and have some fun with and see if you can tame down some of the intensity.
Yeah, I think that that's definitely a great option for your spring cocktails. And by the way, I made a nice big list of floral liqueurs. We're going to go ahead and put that on the show notes page over at mixologytalk.com/41. I figured it'd be really boring if I just listed them all now.
Yeah. Worst podcast ever.
Pretty boring. So I'm going to go ahead and write those down for you. If you're interested, go ahead and find those in the show notes.
Yeah, so the next way to incorporate some of that floral quality of spring is to use them in syrups.
And this is, I think, probably one of the most common ways that you use floral ingredients in cocktails, right?
Yeah, and it's such an easy thing to do. If you're starting to design cocktails on your own or make some, for friends and family, syrups are one of the easiest ways to incorporate flavor into a cocktail. You're basically making tea.
Right, exactly. I mean, it is an infusion, but it's a very fast, inexpensive infusion. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what I like about it. I actually made a hibiscus syrup recently for a cocktail. The whole process maybe took me 20 minutes. Used a cup of sugar, a cup of water, and a cup of dried hibiscus flowers. And I was in business. It was fantastic.
Yeah, and it's a really quick process and it's cheap, so you're not throwing away a lot of booze. And it's a great way just to add a lot of different complexity to a cocktail is through the addition of syrups.
And one thing, depending on the flower that you're using, you can often get a really beautiful color. When I used the hibiscus flower, the color was just this really beautiful, dark purple.
Yeah,
and it was
kind of like a crimson red.
It was dark,
color,
yeah. Although that was by design. I was looking for a heavier flavor extraction, so that's why I let it extract for longer. But I think that this is really great if you're using any sort of a flower, which, by the way, of course, make sure you're using edible, safe flowers. But there is often color, of course, in that flower as well. And so you can get a really beautiful color into that syrup.
Yeah, I remember one of our listeners, or one of the people watching some of the videos on A Bar Above, mentioned that violets, you could actually make a violet syrup, similar to the color-changing tea I made.
Oh, wow.
The syrup. And the same thing, once you add acid to it, it goes from purple to blue, and which would make sense because creme de violette, when you add acid to it, turns purple to blue, hence the aviation.
That would make sense, wouldn't it?
So
speaking of creme de violette, we actually had a question come in at our website where somebody from over in Germany was wondering about creme de violette. Apparently it's quite difficult to get over there, and she was looking to make herself an aviation. So what I would say to that is that I don't know if you can DIY a creme de violette, but I think we're going to have to try.
I think that's probably going to be happening soon.
I think that's probably going to happen. But one thing I will say is I had a lot of trouble finding violet flowers or violet petals. I did find them in potpourri mixes, but those are not typically potable. Don't recommend it.
Yeah, probably not food grade, I would assume.
Not food grade, yeah. So I'm going to give that another try. If I can't find the violet flowers, I'm going to go ahead and see if we can put together a creme de hibiscus and make an aviation out of that and see how it compares.
Interesting. I think that'll turn out pretty good.
I think so. The hibiscus flowers seems like they're a lot easier to come by. I've seen them online. I've seen them, I saw them featured at Tales of the Cocktail last year.
That's true, yeah.
And actually, as it happens, we have a bag of, what is it, 5-6 pounds?
I'm
not kidding.
Pounds
bag,
yeah.
Of dried hibiscus flowers, and I think that's an experiment that will help us get rid of a
They're
few
so
at least.
good, though.
They are good. Do you just eat them like candy?
No.
No.
Wouldn't recommend.
Don't recommend that.
Now, there are quite a few different floral components you can add to syrup. I know elderflower is one that you can actually find in the market. You can
buy that, right?
Yeah.
Elderflower syrup?
And it's really tasty, and it tastes very different from some of the liqueurs that have been made with elderflower as well. So it's a really interesting and kind of a different way of expressing the floral qualities of some of these flowers. And it's multi-purpose. You can use them in cocktails. You can use them in sodas.
Yeah, that's a good
without the
point.
alcohol component. So there's a lot of flexibility in using syrups in cocktails.
Another ingredient that you can use in cocktails to bring the floral component are waters. And this isn't something we talk about a lot. It's not a common ingredient in cocktails. But you can buy orange flower water, rose flower water, and these are highly extracted. They're kind of like tea, right?
Yeah, honestly, I think I came across one blog post a long time ago that showed how to extract your own flower water, but it was so complicated. I was just like, yeah, I'll just buy the stuff.
That says something, because you're willing to do some crazy stuff.
Yeah, you had to basically set up this micro still, and it was just like,
oh, dear.
No, I'm good. I'd rather I'll spend a $3 or $5.
So go ahead and buy your orange flower water.
Right.
But so do you have any tips for folks to use these in cocktails? Because I haven't used them before.
Yeah, the only cocktail that comes to mind that uses any kind of flower water is the Ramos Gin Fizz, and it uses a little bit of orange flower water, and I will say that it's pretty intense and aromatic product, so a little bit goes a long way. I'd say it's probably less than a quarter of an ounce. It could be even a couple of drops, but it adds out amazing kind of floral quality you can't get through the addition of liqueurs or even syrup. So definitely keep your eye out for that. And I think if you go to like a Middle Eastern or Persian food store, something focused on that style of food. It's fairly common, my understanding, so that's usually where I found them.
Good to know. And it sounds like that definitely brings not just flavor, but quite a bit of aroma to the cocktail as well.
Yeah.
So is that something you might want to like spritz up across the top of a cocktail even?
Yeah, that'd be a great way to use this product, is just use a little bit on the top of like a egg white in a mister, egg white foam, and just put a mister across the top of it. And that'll add that amazing floral quality right to the top of the drink and kind of invite people to finish it.
I gotta say, there's just nothing that feels like spring like the smell of flowers.
Yeah.
I think even more so.
Good or bad.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. Goodness knows I get allergies.
Yeah.
But I think that smell is just very, very, very reminiscent of spring. And so if you can bring that aroma in that's going to be great.
So this brings us to another point here, and that is jellies, like jams, jellies, preserves. You can use them in cocktails, and this was kind of a new and kind of big thing that people were incorporating in the cocktails about 5 years ago, and it's still around. It's still a great tool to have in your toolbox as far as like creating cocktails.
Well, if you think about it, I mean, jellies are basically just syrups with like gelatin added, right?
Yeah, to certain degrees, absolutely. You know, you're adding a little bit of weight already with the jelly in there. You're adding some sweetness, not a lot, but some sweetness from the sugar and the jelly, and you're adding whatever flavor is already in that jelly. So it's a great way to add some diversity and flavor into a cocktail.
Now, I don't know if there are other kinds of floral jellies, but I do know that you can buy rose jelly. This is something that I've bought before, and I will tell you, it is a little bit strange on a piece of toast.
Yeah, I actually had some, what was it? It was kumquat. Somebody made a homemade kumquat jelly, and it was super floral from all the oils in the skins, and it was absolutely fantastic. So if you know somebody that likes to make their own jellies, you know, you may be able to set up some kind of a trade system.
Put in a request, yeah, definitely. But the thing that I found the most interesting about that rose jelly was the aroma was beautiful and strong and gorgeous, and the flavor was kind of dull.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of flavor there. It just tasted kind of like sweet.
Right.
And so when you're working with these ingredients in cocktails, make sure you taste them.
Right.
Make sure you smell them. And just be aware that the aroma may be very different from what it's going to taste like.
Right, absolutely. And the other thing, whenever you're making products yourself, always check to make sure that they're actually edible. Just because it's a flower doesn't mean you can consume it. So there was a book I came across. We'll put it in the show notes. I think it's actually called Edible Flowers in Your Garden or something
your
like that.
edible garden or something like that.
Yeah, so we'll put a link to the show notes. And this may be a great way to offset some of the costs for your bar program, too, because edible flowers are very, very expensive.
That's true.
And if you have a place where you can grow flowers on your own, it'll definitely help to offset some of that cost.
Don't forget to wash them, folks.
Exactly.
Now, one more thing is that actually, if I'm not mistaken, Chris, you own a Floral Bitters, don't you?
I do. I have lavender bitters, Scrappy's lavender bitters, and I believe orange blossom bitters as well.
So that's another option for ingredients that can bring that floral component. These guys are going to be pretty heavy on the actual taste, though. When you use those lavender bitters, there's definitely a lot of aroma there, but they do bring quite a bit of flavor as well.
Yeah. Whenever you're using flowers or that floral component in your cocktail, it's always kind of nice to reinforce visually what's going to be in the cocktail. It's one of the things I like to do. And I remember one of the cocktails I made a while ago actually used flowers in ice, and it was a really beautiful presentation, and it was a great way to kind of say, hey, by the way, if you didn't notice, this is kind of a floral cocktail.
By the way, It was gorgeous. It was absolutely gorgeous. We talked about this a couple of episodes ago in our ice episode in terms of using ice for garnish, but this is a fantastic way to do it. Chris just suspended some beautiful, I think they were...
like marigolds.
Yeah,
and violets.
something edible, something safe. In ice, in the center of an ice cube, it was a huge pain, so probably not something you can do in huge quantities, but the final presentation was absolutely beautiful. And I think, I agree with you, Chris. I love for the garnish to tell the story of the drink.
Yeah.
I think there's no question your guest is going to see the drink before they consume it.
Right.
And so by giving them a sense for what's coming, I think it kind of sets the stage.
Yeah, absolutely. And it reinforces in the actual cocktail itself.
Right. Now, there are a couple other ways that you can garnish with flowers. There's what you would expect, which is you can garnish with edible flowers or flower petals on top of the drink. They typically float, especially if you have used egg whites in your cocktail. You're going to have that nice canvas on top to play with. You can just float the petals right across the top.
Yep.
And then another option is you can actually use that egg white sort of foam as a canvas. This is something we've talked about a couple times in the past, where you can use a couple drops of bitters across the top and draw with them.
Yeah, kind of like the latte art in cappuccino
Exactly.
or coffee shops.
Exactly. And another option is you can actually make a stencil and spray bitters across the top. And we did a video.
That was one of my favorite videos.
Yep,
yeah.
We did an amazing video. Chris did a great job where he made a fairly complex stencil and stenciled the Abarabov logo across the top of a drink. It was amazing.
I was so happy when I figured that out. Like,
I didn't think...
there's got to be an easy way to do this.
I gotta be honest with you. I did not think that was gonna work.
It's funny because it's like one of those things that you see in like all these crazy cocktail books and magazines. You see these beautiful stencil work across the top of egg whites. You're like, I don't want to spend $50 to get
you don't want to buy the
stencil that I get to use on one cocktail. But yeah, it was a really cool video, and I was pretty happy because I think it literally cost us less than 5 cents to make that stencil.
I think so. Yeah, you just made the stencil out of a piece of plastic and an X-Acto knife.
Yeah, so
we'll include a link to that video. I think it's a video, right?
Yeah, it was a video.
Yeah, we'll include a link to that video in the show notes as well. Definitely take a look at that. I think a stencil of a flower across the top of your drink, wow, that would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
Especially if you use those floral bitters, because then you're going to get the color, you're going to get the aroma, and it'll look like a flower.
Ooh, I got a good idea. So a stencil of flower.
Okay.
With bitters.
Okay.
With real flowers on top of it.
Ooh.
I know.
And then you could get
trendsetter.
You could get a couple mint leaves and give it a little leaf on the okay, we're going too far.
Yeah. And then serve it in a floral no.
No, we're done.
Yeah, we're done.
But I think the point there is there are a lot of cool ways to use flowers as garnishes or to represent flowers in your garnish. So get creative.
Yeah, have some fun with it for sure. Now, whenever you're using the floral flavors in cocktails, there are a couple of ingredients that really help to kind of amplify and showcase the floral quality of the ingredients that you're working with. The first one that comes to mind for me, and this is kind of tying right into spring, is honey.
Which is not surprising because it's kind of made of flowers.
Right, exactly. But it really helps to tie in that floral note in the final cocktail and kind of reinforce that floral quality in there. And it's a great sweetener alternative too.
Definitely. So if you're going to be making drinks that use that floral quality but don't have a syrup, this might be a good option.
Yeah, and I think we may have mentioned this one before, but if not, teas are a great way to either bring a floral quality, like with chamomile tea. There's actually a couple of companies that are making hibiscus tea. But yeah, it's a great way to enhance the floral quality and bring some more flavor into the cocktails.
Or you can actually just use teas, non-floral teas, with floral stuff in cocktails. Because again, they're built out of that sort of herbal component, those herbal flavors. They just go really well together.
Yeah.
What about spirits? What kind of spirits do you typically work with in the springtime?
You know, I'm just in general, I'm tending to start going with lighter spirits. So especially with the floral qualities, gin is a fantastic one. I know there's one out in, I think it was like Massachusetts, called Ethereal, which has a really amazing floral quality to it. And I believe the story that I remember about this particular gin is the guy used to be an ER doctor, the owner, and basically kind of stepped away from medicine to create this amazing craft gin.
Elixir, you might say.
Yes, it was very, very tasty. But yeah, check out Ethereal Gin. They do a fantastic job, and it'd be a great floral component or ingredient to work with.
And gin in general. I mean, gin to me is botanicals.
Yeah.
So I think working with, again, the herbal botanical element is just going to go pretty well with the floral piece too.
Yeah, and tequila tends to work really well with the floral component. Nice Blanco tequila really goes well in the spring. You know, you start to start craving those margaritas when the weather starts coming out.
You always crave margaritas.
Yeah, it's true. I can't help myself. But damn good cocktail.
I would also say pisco.
Yeah.
I think pisco can be a really fun one. I just personally, I like the flavor. I think it works.
Yeah, and there's a couple of varieties of pisco. I can't remember which ones. I think there's one in particular that is very, very floral. More so than like it doesn't have that kind of earthiness or kind of the strength that some of the pisco has. It's really light and floral. I'll have to look that one up.
Yeah, we'll have to look that up for you.
Yeah, and the last one is cognac. Some of the older age cognacs out there can definitely pick up some floral qualities just from the grapes. And it's kind of an amazing experience to have like a dark spirit that is really light and floral.
That's hard to imagine. I was a bit skeptical, but I'm going to believe you on this one.
Yeah, I just totally made it up, but...
Yeah, right, exactly. Maybe I'll make you find me some of that old cognac to taste.
Right. But yeah, check those out and add those to your springtime menus and experiment. Have fun.
Have fun with it. Exactly. Drink what you like. Enjoy it. And I think springtime is a great opportunity to play with some new flavors, to kind of change things up after the sort of dark and broody spirits of the winter time. So hopefully this episode has given you a couple ideas, maybe a little bit of inspiration. Maybe it's helped you forget about that snowdrift outside your window.
Right, or look forward to the spring.
That's true.
Kind of
yep.
Take your mind away from it a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. So let us know. Are you working with flowers in your cocktails? Or do you have some ideas, some things that you'd like to try? Have you made creme de hibiscus or creme de violette? Let us know over on the show notes page at mixologytalk.com/41.
And that pretty much does it for us, and we'll talk to you guys next week. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers. Never miss an episode by subscribing in iTunes or YouTube. And as always, check out the show notes by clicking on the right.